Howdy, it's Rodfather 916 here with a question. And this is for the men. Who was your inspiration? Who was the man or men who one day you said, I want to be like him? Yesterday, some friends woke me up out of my beauty sleep and said, we need to talk. And we were discussing a mutual friend. This gentleman is really nice. He's very proud that he has a lot of kids. And unfortunately, he's not an involved father. But for some reason, having kids or having these seedlings make him feel like a man. However, one of the seedlings, his oldest, wanted to have the talk. And try as we might, we're never prepared for life. You know, I'm sure he told himself, I'll be ready one day and this is what I will do. But dreaming and reality are two completely different strangers. And this has thrown him for a loop to the point that he's not funny. He's quiet, quite sad, and just really reflective. And so we thought, like, who made, where did he get the idea from having these children but not being involved in their lives makes him a man? Now, I'm quite a bit older than the people I were with yesterday. And so, we're sort of discussing people who impressed us. I lived in a community before integration. You had professional black people along with blue-collar workers. And there was a gentleman named Mr. Arnold. Mr. Arnold was a medical, I don't know if he was a doctor, but he worked at a hospital. And this is in the 60s. I'm very young. This is in the 60s. And when he'd walk down the street, and anytime he saw a woman, he would take off his hat and say, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. And I thought that was class. And I said, that's what I want to do. Of course, the other men in the neighborhood laughed at him, going, look at that guy, look at her, But I thought he was class. When his wife and his daughters would go to the door, go get into the Pontiac they had this long white and green Pontiac. I remember that from 900,000 years ago, but he had a green Pontiac with a white top. Bonneville. Jeez. And that was a long time ago. And they never touched a door handle. He and their sons would open the doors for the women in the family. They would get in the car and they would close the doors. And when they return, even if they return from shopping, the boys would get out, the father and his sons would get out of the car and they would open the door and sometimes lend a hand to help her out. Never seen this. I'm going, this is what white people do. Like, wow. But I admired his style and class, and he spoke well. He never screamed at anybody, which was not uncommon in my neighborhood. Everybody screamed in my neighborhood, it seemed. And I think that's probably what I didn't want to scream at my kids. I figured I didn't have to yell at my kids unless I was, pushing them in the traffic or something like that. Hit them! Asking for some driver to hit my kids. But, and there were others in the neighborhood. A custodian used to clean the rooms at my school. You walk by him and he just commanded respect. He didn't cuss you out. I'll kick that motherfucker's ass. It was none of that. you just know not to mess with this man. And he smiled and said good morning. He'd mow his lawn out front. And there were some kids fighting in his neighborhood. And he says, you stop it right now. And they did. And he was a small man. He wasn't a big man. He was, like 5'7", 5'8". But something about him commanded respect. My father died when I was 6. My brother was in his 20s. And unfortunately, I didn't have any men, nurturing men. In fact, not many people in the family with nurturing. I'm not complaining, because sometimes God doesn't give you what you want. He gives you what you need. And I had complete strangers throughout my entire life who've helped me. Complete strangers. Even today, and I'm in my 60s. Complete strangers. And I've always passed that along, because I have benefited from the wisdom of these strangers. I was homeless when I was, for a few weeks. I don't want to say I've been homeless for a long time, but I felt living on the street was better than living the options I had at the time. Not long. But people who were alcoholic, drug addicts, men that you wouldn't give the time of day to. A lot of people wouldn't. I would. But helped me. They saved me from predators. Because if you go to a shelter, sometimes you have to get in line at 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and yet they don't open until 5 or 6. And there'd be predators talking to me, and I'd be talking. They'd tell me to shut up, and they'd tell the predators to get away from me. And they would tell me to shut up. I talk too much, and told me who to talk to and not to talk to. And just, my life has been that way. There were older black men who would say to me when I was young, get through school, and I was horrible. I mean, graduating barely. Technically I shouldn't have graduated, but they put me up a year. But go to college and help the race. That's how it was in the 60s, 70s. Help the race. Someone's looking at you. It doesn't have to be anybody you know. But they're looking at you, and and once you make it, you help lift them up. Because they can look at a black man and say, look at him. I want to be like him. And I live that way today. We need to pull each other up. And it's not just a black thing. But oftentimes in some communities, black people want other black people to fail. Who wins from that? I mean, we're all doing the best we can, but what's up with that? But I had black men who tell me, not students, but counselors tell me, take this course, take anything that you think that'll get you a job. And I'm telling you, that was the best advice. That was the best advice. He said, I don't care what you do, but whatever you do, you want to get all the skills you can out of this. And luckily in California, community college is free. They say a lot of things about California being expensive, but getting an education is relatively cheap. I mean, in certain parts of the country, to go to a JC is thousands of dollars. Here, it's hundreds of dollars. And so I'd had a counselor say, learn this, learn that. And I'm telling you, I benefited from that. Because what he was telling me, what's happened is industries close. Things shut down. But if you only know how to do one thing, you may be stuck. So I am grateful to all those people who helped me along the way. Yes, there are men out there who says, "Rrr, rrr, rrr, I'm a man, I'm tough, I walk like this, I don't take a shit, I'll kill a motherfucker." That wasn't me. I'm not sure how they arrived at that point that this is how I need to get the respect, but I don't think you get respect out of fear. They're just afraid of you. I'm not sure if that's a form of respect. Others, and I've talked about this in another video, where men walk around going, I don't need any help. I'll figure it out all on my own. And as I get older, I realize how ridiculous that is, because there are people out here to help you. Can you imagine changing your tires without any tools and standing out there and trying to figure out where you could just walk to an AutoZone or someplace and buy the tools because you're a man? Let that sink in for a minute. There are tools. But somehow men get it in their heads like, oh, I don't need no help. I'll figure this out on my own. You know, black people are afraid of psychiatrists. If you're a religious person, God created a psychiatrist. They're not trying to help you. They're not trying to change you. Trust me, I've seen therapists giving you ideas that you hadn't thought about. But people are afraid. No, I don't need that. Afraid of the fear. You know, I had a video early in the year saying dying alone. A lot of that's us. People dying in their chairs because they don't want to ask for anybody help. They don't want to look weak. So they found a man in his apartment 3 weeks later with maggots coming out of his ears and his nose and all. That was a lesson for me, dude. I have switched a lot of people going, you have changed. Yeah. Just knowing that. And that person lived in an apartment just across the way from me, because nobody had seen him, but I'm going in a different direction. He had been in his apartment figuring it out by himself. So if you're figuring it out by yourself, nobody's checking on you because you got it, right? Stupid. When you think about it. Stupid. Let somebody know. But so the question is, and I started to go off, and I apologize. Where did you learn to become a man? Did someone tell you to have kids and just have kids and don't be them? And if that is, that's a breakdown on people like me who are older, or people who are older than me saying, you know what? Kids need a mother and father. I'm not taking anything away for single mothers. There's a lot of, I was raised by single mothers. So if there's a woman looking at this, thank you for doing the best you can and looking out for your child. But what a woman can't do for her daughter is say, this man over here is no good. Because a man knows a man better than women do. A woman knows a woman. You know, for my nieces, I say, you smell that shit? He's full of shit. He smelled like shit, and he was in his car 2 blocks away. I could smell him. Women can't do that. A man can tell him, say, look, this man ain't about nothing. Leave this man alone. If you have a kid, you gonna be working 5 jobs. His daughter doesn't have that input. But his son doesn't get the input either, going, listen, you don't need to beat up somebody to prove that you're a man. You don't need to cuss out somebody to choose to be a man. He needs his father. Once again, I want to be very clear. I'm not taking away from anybody who had a single parent. That was me. I was just blessed that I had men saying, you know, don't do that, Rodfather. Don't do that. And these men have left an impression on me. Mr. Art, I couldn't believe, I remember the color of his car. And that's been more than 50 years, but I remember that. And these men taught me how to be a man. Perfect, I'm not. You know, I have kids. I've made mistakes with them. I've learned to listen to my kids instead of telling them what to do. If your parents or your grandparents are out there trying to tell you what to do, they mean well, but they can't protect you. And I've learned to wait until my kids come and ask me instead of me telling them what they should do and how they should live their lives. Because when they come to you, then they're ready to receive versus you. Yeah, boy, you need to do this. You ain't living your life right. Nothing's going to happen. Who wants to hear that? So if there's parents seeing this, just keep that in mind. You had to figure it out for yourself, because what kids do is they want to show their parents up, show their parents that they're wrong. They got it. I got this. I remember I was that child, and that's been a long time ago. Your kids will get there, and if they need you, they know where you are. Don't beat them up, and certainly don't beat them down. I think that's the cruelest anything a parent can ever do to a child, is tell them they're stupid, they're worthless, or nothing. Because the parent is the person that they respect. The parent is God. And God tells you you're nothing, you're stupid, you're ridiculous, you're ugly, all these things. That's the worst abuse ever. Why don't you just take a hot poker and beat them with it? Because the damage is life-lasting. If they're, it takes them a long time to get through that, because that's not love. Think about it. Maybe you were taught that way. I tried to be different than when I was raised. I tried to be loving. I tell my family and people who matter I love them. I'm still a man. I don't want to wait until somebody's being carted off and put in the back of a hearse and say, I love you. Get out of here. Get out of here. If you think I'm soft or anything you want to think, I'm all right with that, because I'm confident who I am as a man. I don't need your acceptance or your approval. Rodfather 916. Wishing you love, joy, and happiness. COVID has taken a turn. Not telling you what to do, but the hospitals are full with people, more people who haven't had the vaccine versus the people who had the vaccine. What side do you want to be on? Again, wishing you love, joy, and happiness for real. Thank you very much for watching this very long video. I'd like to hear your comments. If you like what you've been hearing and watching the old videos, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell. I'm trying to build the Rodfather to what it was. I make it sound so grand. But anywho, thank you a lot for watching. Bye now.